All right, so uh, just playing around. Quick history. When I was 16, I tried to pull a weight that was much too heavy and caused a pretty good spinal injury. That was fun. That was a recurring thing for a very long time. 1996, I was in a car accident in which a gentleman rear-ended me at about 45 miles an hour, and I was stopped at a stoplight. It pushed the rear bumper of my Volkswagen Rabbit all the way to the rear wheel. Pretty good accident. Out of that, I got a torn disc at the third cervical vertebrae and subluxed vertebrates in the thoracic and lumbar spine. Most importantly, it exacerbated what was already a existing condition at the thoracic spine. So what happens is, I'll move wrong, I'll sneeze, I'll put on my shoes, I'll roll over in bed, something, anything, just whatever. And one of my ribs will slide out of place, and about T5, T6 will roll, hit that nerve, and all of the fascia and musculature around my thoracic spine seizes up, and I can't breathe, I can't move, and I lose rotation, I lose flexion and extension, I lose pretty much all movement, and it's excruciating. It's like somebody's kicking you in the kidneys and ribs all day long. Every time you try to take a breath, it's like getting punched. So that's really awesome. Woke up this morning, couldn't move too well. This happened yesterday. I put on my boots, and I rolled a little bit too far forward at the thoracic. For whatever reason, it hit that nerve, and bingo bango, there I was in excruciating pain. Made it through the day pretty well. Didn't have a lot of problems. So now, where I'm at this morning is, back up so you can see it, get a reference point for my thoracic rotation. So right about there is where I start feeling tension, and right about there is where I start feeling tension. So one more time so you can see that. Rotating left, and what happens is the muscle starts to spasm. Rotating right, and I start to lose my breath because the lungs are being compressed. Arms out, you can see it. So I have a little more rotation to the right than I do to the left. As far as flexion and extension goes, I usually have pretty good thoracic movement. And there's a little bit of a jolt there. That's right where it starts to be a problem for me. And then going to the front, if I go very slowly, that's right where it starts to be a problem. Translation, so you can get an idea. Alright, so what I came up with was, because of the position I was in, which was hands forward, seated in a chair, I was basically sitting down in a chair, and I pulled my boot on. And when I pulled my boot on, I was kind of like this. If that is the position I was in when I got hurt, then I started applying the template that I learned in Z-Health and some of the principles that I've learned from other disciplines. Mostly this is Z-Health iPhase. And looking at that template, I started thinking, well, what can I do? And shoulders in full flexion, thoracic waves, reduced my pain by about 50% immediately. That was pretty cool. Okay, let's keep applying this. Shoulders up, pelvic work. So pelvic tilts, lateral, front to back, and full rotation. That helped a lot. From that point, all right, what else? What can I do that incorporates more fascia, more tissue? And what I thought was, well, let's look at bridging. If shoulders in full flexion and hip extension and knee extension, the best I could come up with was, let's test it, and I figured out that knee extension wasn't as important as hip extension, shoulder flexion. So this is shoulder extension, this is shoulder flexion. What I thought was, let's look at bridging. So if I roll back into a bridge, and then start working. So there's some neck rotations. A little bit of thoracic. A little bit of pelvic. And you'd have to experience to understand how really good this actually feels right now, because of how much tissue is being recruited. And it's not painful, which is the big thing. So back to reference point. So you can see what the result is. That's where I start feeling tension now. That's where I start feeling tension now. Arms out reference. That's tension. That's tension. And if you look at my hips, I'm trying not to move them much so you can get a good reference of what that's like. As far as thoracic extension now, flexion, lateral translation. Not as much pain. If you look around the areas around my neck, you can see in the earlier part of this clip where the startle response was kicking up, and now you can see where the startle response is no longer kicking up. So just thought I'd share that. A little bit of playing around with movement can in fact get you out of pain, and if movement can get you into pain, movement can get you out of pain. I find this to be a true thing. Cheers.